Welcome to Emerging Franchise Brands, the podcast that introduces you to the visionary founders of America's fastest growing franchise opportunities. We'll also hear from industry pros as they share what it really takes to achieve the elusive milestone of 100 plus locations. I am your host, Frank Fiume, founder of I9 Sports, and my 20-year journey from inception to acquisition has given me a unique perspective on how to succeed in franchising. Join me as we welcome today's guest. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. On today's show, I have the founder of Garage Floors for Less, Marc Desgroseilliers. Marc, how are you?
Hey, doing amazing. Thank you for having me.
Marc, it's great seeing you again. A great time. I know we met at the IFA back in February. It was great to get an introduction to what you do. With that said, let's kick off this podcast episode, huh?
Love it. Yeah, let's go. Let's dive into it.
All right. Marc, let's start with backstory. I love finding out from founders what life was like before they even started their company. So what were you up to? What were you doing before you launched Garage Floors for Less?
Yes, I have quite the path to where I am today, but I was born and raised on a farm. So I took that, got into the car business where I really cut my teeth into how to talk to people and how to close deals. And then I stepped into the corporate world where I acquired a lot of marketing and digital skills that really, I think, has been a platform for what we're doing today. And then one day I was playing golf with a buddy of mine, and he said, "Hey, I need help with my coding business." And I'm like, "I don't know codings, but I'm pretty good with sales and marketing." I said, "Let me give you a hand." And it exploded sort of overnight. And I created the name Garage Floors for Less because there was a perception that this was a luxury item for the home. And the name became basically a sales driver. It was a sales funnel from the start. And here we are today now with 21 locations.
All right. Well, let's stick with before we started franchising. So you started the company right in 2019. What inspired you to get into the garage beautification business?
Yeah, so my father was a general contractor, and I've always enjoyed the transformation aspect that my father was delivering for homeowners. And I remember seeing homeowners being so happy and thrilled for whether it be new windows, a new roof. And when we started exploring this garage beautification business, I saw that same reaction. Customers were happy, they were thrilled, they were, on a different level. And that just gave me a big sense of pride. And I just latched onto that, and that's been sort of a driving force.
Okay. Was entrepreneurship encouraged as a child growing up?
Well, I guess, yeah. I mean, getting stuff done was encouraged. On the farm, and my father being a general contractor, there was always work to do. On the farm, you're always fixing things. And as a general contractor, you're staying busy. You're delivering what you're supposed to do, which is, fixing homes, renovating homes, and building additions. So that's always been in my blood. And now It's just formalizing into what I do today.
Nice. Okay, so before we get into the franchising side of the business, I'd love to hear about what life was like when you first started the company and you were running it, and what were things like back then?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it was a rough start. When I first started, I started with my golf buddy who turned out to be actually a very bad partner. So that dissolved fairly quickly. I tried again with another partner, and that dissolved fairly quickly. It was really difficult. I was mostly focused on sales and marketing, and my partners were focused on the install. And then at some point, I just rebooted. I said, "You know what?" I was having coffee with a buddy of mine, and he said, "Marc, just do the work yourself." And I'm like, "That's such a great idea." So I did that, and I rebooted the company. My first hire was now our chief marketing officer today. And we started for the first couple of years. We did everything ourselves, and we learned the process, and we failed and failed and failed until we got it right.
Yeah, that's great. I say it's great because there's a big, misperception when people meet somebody who is successful, such as yourself. They think you were an overnight success and you had it easy and you had an in, and it doesn't sound like any of that was true.
No, there was a lot of pain. I'm not going to get into it, but there's a lot of pain at the beginning. I went through some very, some hardships for sure, because you're trying to figure stuff out, and then you have some other setbacks when you're trying to partner with people. It's very difficult.
Of course.
But I think that was needed because it created an amazing product today.
Yeah. Was there a pivotal moment when you knew this company had great potential, when you're just running it before you start franchising it?
I think it's on the sales side where I remember booking like 8 appointments on a Saturday, and I closed 6 of them on a Saturday. It was like right there, customers were just, give me my money. They were like, I'm in. I want this service. You're presenting yourself well. It was validation right there in one day that
Mhm.
said, I think this really works. And then that sort of laid the path to our growth.
What about inspirations in running the business? You mentioned your buddy who you had coffee with that said, "Why don't you just do this yourself?" Along the way, I mean, entrepreneurship can be lonely. I know I went through this myself. Were there any mentors or people that inspired you along the way that kind of gave you the encouragement to keep going?
Yeah, I think earlier on was my father's thoughts because he passed away, but my close friends were a good support system. But early on, what I did reach out to other founders and I did reach out to other business owners. I joined the Chamber of Commerce and I connected with other entrepreneurs. And I think that's been sort of a big help. I'm very good at connecting with other people. And I think that's been a pivotal thing for me.
That's fantastic. Look, the home service is exploded, right? Post COVID has been an incredible industry, arguably probably the fastest growing sector in franchising, arguably since COVID. What do you think your business model in particular that you think is really unique and scalable compared to others that are in your industry?
hmm Yeah, and that's a good point. We are in a saturated market. The garage beautification segment is not new. However, what we've done is we've actually combined commercial opportunities with residential. So we're the first franchise garage beautification system to incorporate polished concrete and concrete repair at a high scale in the commercial space.
Okay, and before we go too far down the road here, I think we should probably share with the audience what exactly you guys do besides the epoxy floors, because we keep talking about we're in the garage beautification business. So share with us like everything that you guys offer. What are some of the most popular services?
Yeah, and just to also add a bit more context, we also manufacture some of our products. So the resins themselves, the coatings,
Mm-hmm.
we manufacture ourselves. We have a chemist on staff and we control the quality. It's proprietary and it's advanced coating, technology. But the other things that we do is we do slat wall or wall organization. We do cabinets, which we are also manufacturing as well. And we do overhead racking. So everything that encompasses the garage, except for the garage door, we cater to.
Okay. What was the motivation behind getting a proprietary blend for your flooring?
So the motivation there, that's we could have a podcast on that alone. It's so when I first started, I was doing the coatings like everybody else. I was buying from a wholesaler and I was doing the coatings. And then there was, the year after, customers were calling me and saying, "Hey, Marc, we love you, but can you come and fix this peeling and or fix this bubbling?" And this was a repetitive nature where
Hmm.
I did the math, and almost 60% of coatings in our industry fail because of moisture in the concrete and poor adhesion. So I partnered with a chemist to solve this problem. And that's what we did. We took an industrial grade product that's only used in mining shafts and in tunnels, and we reverse engineered it for residential. And it's a system that doesn't peel, it's permanent.
How did you even know where to go to get this done?
Well, I first started off with a different solution because I saw that, you could seal concrete and sealing
Mm-hmm.
concrete is a big industry.
Sure.
But there were some issues with that. As we tried it, there was an issue between our coatings and our sealer, and they weren't really working well together. And I went to the chemist, and we sat down and we said, "Listen, there's got to be some technologies that we can use to solve this problem." And the first pushback was, "Well, that's very expensive. We only use it in industrial spaces and airport runways and mining shafts." And I'm like, "There's got to be a way." So we pushed and pushed, and we spent a lot of time in the lab, and we came up with a solution that works.
Before we get to your franchise story, I got one last thing for you as we talk sort of about the early days. If you can go back to the beginning and do something all over, what's maybe one thing you would do differently?
I would probably get on the tools faster. Instead of trying to build the whole empire out of the gate. I would probably go on the tools and learn it and breathe it for a couple of years, like I eventually did, and that would have probably gotten me 2 years
What do you
further
mean on
ahead.
the What do you mean on the tools? Expand on that.
Really, like getting into how to do it. How does concrete work and how does this machine
Oh,
work and how do these products work and how to present it to a customer rather than being all sales and marketing and here's the beautiful pictures and how to make it work, to how it really works and what are the real challenges of the industry.
I guess looking back, it would have been really hard to have anticipated that, starting out,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, I was banking on some partners that didn't work out. So, it's really a blessing in disguise. I was actually forced to go and do it.
Absolutely. Okay. And then, so what led you to franchising? How did this one day pop into your head like, hey, I think we're going to franchise this?
Yes. 3 years into it, we're rocking and rolling. We have subcontractors and we have our own employees. And some of these subcontractors approached us and said, listen, we would love to have this type of business ourselves. We're tired of being a subcontractor. And that's how franchising was born. It was born out of an ask.
You know what? That happens more times than not when I talk to emerging founders. It wasn't necessarily their vision to franchise. And I think that's a good thing
Yeah.
when you're getting just out of pure demand. Now, you could have went different routes, right? You could have licensed it. You didn't necessarily have to franchise it. You could have helped them open locations. Ultimately, as you looked into franchising, what was most appealing to you?
The biggest thing was controlling the quality of what we delivered. So since we're manufacturing our products, we wanted to make sure that we were in front of a customer, we had total control on what was being delivered. Licensing opens up a lot of variables that you have no control over, where
Mhm.
franchising actually delivers that for us.
Yeah, no, for sure. So let's go over the numbers. We've got 21 franchises in Canada. You're getting ready to expand into the U.S. Do you have your FDD all done here in the U.S. now?
We are 95% done.
Sweet.
We're right there. We're just tweaking it and we're ready to go. We did our franchise agreement and now the FDD is being completed. And yeah, we're ready to go.
Okay. Where do you guys want to expand when you come to the U.S.? Are there specific markets that you'd like to go to first?
Well, the pipeline's already full, so we have a lineup at the door. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to interview sort of those high premium candidates and see where they're located. But logistically, we are product heavy, so we ship a lot of product, whether it be cabinets and slat wall, and also our resins. So we want to make sure that we're centralized and we're able to cater to the initial growth.
Going back to your Canadian franchises, I'd love to hear about how did you find your first, dozen franchises?
So we actually partner with a franchise sales organization here in Canada. They're specific to Canada only.
Okay.
Over 20 plus years of experience. And, we became friends through the process. So he's a dear friend of mine. And we've been able to sort of collaborate on that initiative where we're able to. So we generate leads together and we go after the market together. We do discovery calls together and our discovery days are all done together. So it's something that we've been part of the process since day one and we control that process internally.
You've been really happy then working with this FSO, sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say it's a fractional FSO if we're to use that, where,
Hmm.
they don't control the entire process. We're involved pretty much at every stage, and there's certain stages where we control the process.
That's great. And I think that's really important and really important for founders to hear. I know we have a lot of emerging founders that listen to this, whether you're using a broker group or an FSO, which can be a phenomenal relationship and really help you grow faster. It's not a set it, forget it, right? As a founder, and you mentioned this a few times now, where you are involved in controlling the process, because some founders just think, well, I hire an FSO and they're ultimately responsible for selling franchises. That's not how to do it. You need to be intimately involved in that to make sure you're bringing on the right candidates, right? That believe in your core values and you're still vetting them. It's not just let them sell. Otherwise, you may not be happy with who's on board.
That's a phenomenal point. It's probably the biggest thing or the hardest thing to do as an emerging
Mm-hmm.
franchisor. It's very appealing. It's very attractive to have a whole organization help you get on the map and get 50 to 100 locations. And if you have the experience, I have some franchisors that I'm connected with, this is their third go and their experience and they have the infrastructure. That's great and great for them, and I think they're right for that. But for us, the hardest thing to do is to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
Slow down. You don't need to go to 25, 30 locations. Do quality work. with quality franchisees, make sure you have zero turnover, make sure everybody's happy. So we focus a lot on support. Our support system is through the roof. You can only accomplish that if you're at a slow pace. That's my firm belief, and we're going to continue that in the U.S. We're going to be extremely picky, and we're going to be holding on the reins very tightly.
Good for you, Marc. There's like 4,000 franchise opportunities out there, right? What do you think has been attracting them to garage floors for less?
Yeah, I think there's a fresh take on the brand itself as a sales funnel. I mean, the name itself is a sales funnel, and we focus a lot on generating leads, making sure that we're highly visible. That's step number one. Step number two is our support system. Our support system is extremely robust, whether it be AI and some of our digital infrastructure. But for example, even internally, we have an internal support system where daily we have we call it our morning flooring prep, where we actually meet internally to make sure that we support our franchisees every single day, and everything is brought to the surface and we tackle that. So, but yeah, I mean, those are just some of the elements that help us do what we do.
Okay, and as for the the targeted franchisee, who do you think is the kind of person that really thrives in your system? I mean, you've got 21 franchises now, so you've probably started picking up some common threads along the way to see on what are some of these common traits of your high flyers.
Yeah, it's also kind of an interesting story where we have, in one group, we have a teacher who became a franchisee and is totally thriving, actually won franchisee of the year at our conference last month. And then we have an engineer, and then we have a technician that worked in an automotive dealership that wanted more freedom. But the common traits is they want more. They want more out of life. They want more control on their time, and they want to build something for themselves.
And are you open to multi-unit franchise locations, or are you just selling singles?
Yes, no, multi-unit franchisees are welcome. We do expect a different type of investment for those, and we need obviously a development plan with 3 territories or 5 or 6. But definitely that's available to whoever comes to us, and it has all the right elements.
And what's the overall investment range to open one?
So the overall range, you're looking between 125 to 185, and we're maybe on the higher side in our space, and that's because we have polished concrete and we have concrete repairs. We have a lot more tooling to assemble at the beginning, a lot more training. Our training is quite robust, but we can talk about that as well.
And what's the typical size of a territory?
So the typical size is between 125 to 150, detached households.
Okay, so based on households, all right. Well, that makes sense. Some people I know do population, but actually households makes a lot more sense here.
Yeah, there's no garages in the condos, so.
True. You mentioned training and support and how important that is, and I know you guys take a lot of pride in that. Can you elaborate? What does training and support look like?
Well, first of all, you can't do training in 5 days. That just doesn't work. So what we have is we have a 4-week training program. The first week is in class and in field with our trainers here at head office. And then we have 3 weeks of additional training. One is digital marketing and sales. And then we have in-market where our national trainers will go into your market, and you have 1 week of sales training, and then you have 1 week of application training as well. And then that continues. And then you get what's called the scaling of your business training, which is ongoing. Basically, for the first 90 days, you have a weekly call to make sure that you're hitting all your major touch points and make sure that you're hitting some KPIs that get you where you need to be.
And you probably noticed that business coaching is a lot more prominent or more necessary than you first thought, probably when you first started franchising.
Yeah, coaching is huge. I mean, that's something, if I was to start over and invest more into, would be that for sure. It would be more and more coaching. I love it. I love the reception it gets, and I love the results. I mean, guys and gals that go through the training and get coached on a weekly basis really show a lot of positive results much quicker than the early days.
Well, it's going to prove to allow you to accelerate that growth with obviously proven success, and in Canada now coming to the U.S. You've been franchising now for 4 years, so you're not new at this. I'm sure it hasn't been. It's never easy. It wasn't easy for me. It hasn't been easy for anybody I talked to. Is there anything in particular that really surprised you as in the last 4 years of your franchise journey that you weren't expecting when you first started?
That's a very good question. If there's one thing that really surprised me was really the family component, the culture that we focused on culture internally from a management standpoint, but to see the culture sort of grow and have all these tentacles into everything that we do into our franchisees is the biggest and the nicest surprise. We saw it at our conference last month where we really have a family. I'm hearing stories of, somebody from British Columbia is calling the guy in Ontario, the guy from Nova Scotia is calling the guy in Alberta. And there's this amazing family that's being built right now. And that's the greatest surprise, something I did not expect.
That's tremendous. Likewise, you're building a community is really what you're building.
Yeah, it's I've grown more attached to that now than the overall business. I mean, it's like now I can't wait to talk to them every day. It's like, hey, what's going on? Yeah,
Right.
the guy in auto is razzing me about my sales this week, so I got to pick it up. It's creates a really good environment.
Is there communication, or is there some sort of scorecard that they can see each other's results?
Yeah, so we make sales very transparent. We share with everybody, and we have live chats for the whole group, and everybody's in the same chat. And so we're all chatting and we're all sharing, and we're sharing our wins, we're sharing our losses, we're sharing our struggles, and it's very transparent and it flows nicely.
That's phenomenal. That's how we learn from each other's failures, and there's also a built-in motivation because you don't want to be the guy at the bottom of the standings.
Yeah, I mean, but that's one area where initially I was not a big fan of. I came from the corporate world where everything was structured and
Hmm.
everybody worked in silos, where I had to really be open-minded about opening this up because, with that brings a lot of transparent feedback and it could hit everybody at the same time. It is a chance, but it turned out to be a wonderful thing. And I'm glad I stepped into that unknown.
Yeah, I'm glad you did that. I went through a similar experience too. I wasn't sure. We called ours the network scorecard. I wasn't 100% on board with having that level of transparency in trying to protect the people that weren't in the top 20, or the top 25. And so at first we didn't show all the numbers and we only showed the top people to each other. And then other people wanted to see it. And before you knew it, we showed all of the numbers across the network, and it was motivating. And it ended up being the right decision. But I remember at first I was just like, oh, I'm not so sure about this. Is there going to be like this, backlash? But it turned out to be the right move. It sounds like you kind of had that same hesitancy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. A lot of these new things, as a founder, you might overthink it. How is that going to impact
Absolutely.
my daily operations and make sure that, so yeah, I had to get out of my comfort zone there for sure.
Yeah. It's funny you should say that. I feel like there were a lot of decisions that I went into thinking ahead of time, like I anticipated it being a big deal, and those ended up being no problem at all. And then other decisions I thought were literally, they had no impact on anybody and they'll be fine. And those were the ones that would blow up in my face.
Absolutely. These are little things like even empowering our head office staff to broadcast a message.
Mm-hmm.
My team is able to do that without even speaking to me. So they can
Wow.
actually broadcast a message, whether it be a change in procedure or change of how to do things. They're empowered to do so. And if they trip and they fall, I'm there to pick them up and we'll fix it together. But yeah, everybody's
Mm-hmm.
empowered to do that and to make sure that we keep that transparency and the speed of our communication.
Yeah, that's great. Well, let's talk about the vision for the future and the franchise opportunity a bit more. Where do you see this company? Where's it going to be in the next 5 to 10 years?
Wow. I've thought of that a lot. I mean, 5 to 10 years. I mean, I'm already getting phone calls from all kinds of investors and so forth. But, my dream would be to keep it in the family. My daughter works, my wife works with me as well. And I have some good friends in the company. So it would be amazing to keep it in the family for as long as possible. That would be the dream. And I think franchisees would love that too, because there's nothing more disruptive than a founder stepping down and then there's a private equity group taking over and asking for numbers every week. So my thing is to keep it as long as we go as possible and to be involved. But in terms of units, like I said earlier on, we're going to take it slow. We're going to build it right, a really strong foundation. But the vision is very simple. We want to be the most loved garage beautification brand in the US and in Canada.
That's fantastic. Well, it sounds like this is really going to be a legacy for you and your family. Have you thought about ultimately, what do you hope to leave in your legacy for this brand?
Yeah, it's really a change. The biggest thing is lasting change because what's being done on the market with respect to resins in a consumer's house is subpar. It's not enough. It's not strong enough. It's just enough to make it look good, and but it's not strong enough to be a long-term solution. So my lasting thing is to have products that are lasting for life. They're in there, consumers can enjoy it, and the brand is sort of recognized for delivering lifetime products.
Let's talk about your customers and where do you see how you've seen the business change. What trends are you seeing in your industry? Are there been changes in terms of what your customers have the most interest in now versus how it was, 6 years ago?
Yeah, in terms of the products themselves, there's maybe some more requirements or more requests on products to help organize a smaller space. Home builders are getting very smart. They're making garages super, super tight. They're trying to put an extra house at the end of the row. So, there's more requests on putting my bikes on the ceiling, putting my stuff up above the car. But consumer behavior is also changing. I call it the Amazon effect, where somebody wants it, they want it now. And for example, same thing with a lead. So somebody puts an inquiry or texts us for an inquiry. We have a rule. It's the 60-second rule. You need to be there right away, or else they're going to go to the next one. So speed is at a premium now. You need to be fast with leads, and then you need to be able to do the work efficiently. So we try and get our franchisees to scale as fast as possible. So we don't, some of our guys are waiting, 4 to 6 months to do an installation. They're booked out way too far, and that creates a lost opportunity.
I remember when we met at the IFA, the one thing that stood out to me in our conversation was this wasn't just about garage floors, and it was about the garage beautification business. And the whole game has elevated, right? Of what you do and what people expect. You're saying like how builders are making the home smaller, making garages smaller specifically, but people are looking for something a whole lot more than just the floor epoxy.
Oh, absolutely. Now it's like, I want to convert my garage with a golf simulator. Or I'm homeschooling my kids, so I want to create a classroom in the garage. Or I have these electric cars, I need to install some EV chargers, and I'm spending a lot of time. I'm actually playing poker in my garage now, so I need to do that with to make it look good. So there's so many garage conversions now that are happening. It's a big room. It's 400 square feet on average. You can do a lot in this room. So yeah, there's just so many possibilities, and people are realizing that I can use this room for a lot more than just parking my car.
Neat. Well, if someone was interested in learning more about garage floors for less, Marc, where would they go?
They go to our website, garagefloorsforless.com or .ca, and we have our franchising tab there. We have all our products, and you can reach me on LinkedIn. You can hit me up on LinkedIn. Be happy to have a conversation. And check us out online. All
right, I got one last question for you. I always finish every podcast with a franchise tip jar because the franchise community is so generous with sharing information. So, I kind of mentioned it earlier, there's like 4,000 franchise concepts out there. If you had a friend, Marc, that was interested in buying a franchise of another brand, what advice would you give them to make sure they're making a good decision?
Yeah, I would definitely, validation would be in existing franchisees. I would definitely be calling existing franchisees. Look at the documents, the franchise disclosure document. Do your math. I think a lot of franchisees don't take the time and maybe take counsel from somebody who can help them put a pro forma together, put a 3-year pro forma together, and make sure that that's what you want to invest in, and make sure you have enough investment into your business.
Awesome. Marc, thank you so much. It was great seeing you again. I wish you all the best and continued success.
Frank, I enjoyed today, and all the best to you.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.